Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. When Karen caused a mess in my coffee shop, I reciprocated by creating chaos at her workplace while she was on duty. The second story. Noisy neighbor files multiple complaints against me for strata violations. Turns out their entire unit is not strata compliant and pays the big price. The third story. Roommate's financial irresponsibility and a sociopathic attitude lead to a clever payback scheme, where the roommate gets paid back in pennies. Today's first story is, make a mess at my job, I'll make a mess at yours. It brought me a good amount of satisfaction, So I worked at the Mermaid Coffee Shop. This location was in a strip mall, and I had worked there for about a year at the time. There was a matcha green tea latte, which normally had 4 pumps of sweetener in the medium cup. At the time, I've heard it may have changed. A common substitution was vanilla instead of the regular sweetener. If someone said they wanted vanilla, we normally didn't also put the regular sweetener in. Honestly, it's a service. 8 pumps of any type of sugar is a lot for most people. So anyways, it's sort of a slow period, so it's just me and my shift supervisor out front. I'm managing cash and making the drinks as the shift cleans. In comes Karen. She looked maybe 24 to 26 and was dressed very nicely in an all-black outfit. The encounter starts normally, with me ringing her in at the cash, an iced matcha green tea latte with vanilla, and then go to make her drink. Of course, I only put the vanilla and not the regular sweetener. I hand the drink to her and she takes a sip. Her face scrunches up and immediately she turns to me peeved off. Her attitude goes 0 to 100 as she raises her voice, to start in on me about the drink not being right. Well, luckily for her, it's an easy fix. I tell her I'll just put the sweetener in. No problem at all. So she hands the cup back and I pump the sweetener straight in the cup. Totally normal, and make sure it's mixed. I ask her if she'd like to taste it before I put a lid on to ensure it's sweet enough. She agrees. It's important to note that this is normal. We often hand out drinks without lids, so I'm pretty good at knowing when something is a spill risk. It wasn't even close. She picks up the cup and takes a sip and it spills down her front. I honestly don't know what happened. Maybe the ice moved oddly or something. Still, it wasn't a big spill and she was wearing black so you couldn't see anything. Either way, I'm reaching for paper towel and asking her if she wants a wet one. She fully goes off on me. It's my fault she spilled the drink. If I had just put the sweetener in at the beginning, this wouldn't have been an issue, etc. She's swearing, waving her arms everywhere, and throws the cup on the ground and starts screaming that the coffee shop better pay her dry cleaning bills, etc. I'm just kind of staring at her having a full-on tantrum in the shop. My shift notices the drama and comes rushing over. Karen continues to go off on a tirade about me and the company in this store. The shift ends up giving her a refund and another drink, but says obviously there's nothing the company can do about her spilling a drink on herself. Karen is peeved but accepts it and leaves the store, a huge mess in her wake. I have to go get a mop and clean up the drink she slammed on the ground. Green tea latte everywhere. Now, what I haven't mentioned in this story yet is that this Karen happened to be wearing a name tag which said her name and company. And this company happened to be a shoe store in the same strip mall the coffee shop was in. I simmered over the rest of my shift about whether I should actually do what I was thinking or not. But the end went screw it, I'm going shopping. So after my shift, I head on over. A large part of me doesn't expect to actually see her, but there she is. She's in the aisles stacking shoes. She seems to be the only one out front. I head on over and ask for her assistance. I think it took her a minute of talking to me to realize who I was, but I knew everything had clicked when her face suddenly goes from customer service to shock. Still, I act as if I don't know who she is and ask her questions about a random pair of shoes. I ask to try them on and give a range of 3 sizes, lying to say I don't know what size will fit. She offers to do a sizing and I refuse, saying I just want to try on the shoes. She brings out 3 pairs. I try them on, making a mess of the boxes, papers, and shoes, before telling her none of them are what I'm looking for. I make no attempt to put things back, which, not gonna lie, kinda hurt me to do, and grab the nearest shoe and ask her to try on the same sizes in that shoe size. Rinse and repeat for many pairs of shoes. There are still no other customers in the store. At this point, she looks really annoyed, but another person, a supervisor as I found out later, has come out from the back to handle the cash register, so it's not like she could say or do anything. Overall, this process of back and forth takes about an hour or so. I got really into the role of ridiculously picky customer, which is fun when you're supposedly messing with someone. I was polite as all hell but just wouldn't give her the opportunity to escape.
Only a few other people come in the store, but the supervisor helps them. Eventually, I decide I'm done and pick out a pair of socks and head towards the cash register. The supervisor rings me out and I head on my way. Karen messed with the wrong tired barista that day. She came into my work and made a mess, so I went into her work and made an even bigger mess. Edit. Funnily enough, I never saw her again. I wouldn't call her a regular before, but she was there often enough that I recognized her and could guess she worked nearby. As the only coffee shop in the close vicinity, we got to know a lot of the nearby workers. She hadn't, to my knowledge, raised a fuss beforehand either, so maybe it was an off day for her. But yeah, never again afterwards. Maybe she brought her latte from home. You have definitely taught this Karen a real lesson. If she decided to create a circus in your coffee shop because of a minor flaw in a drink, you just responded in kind. Turning into an extremely picky customer and starting the process of choosing shoes with tattered boxes and scattered papers is a true masterpiece of misery. You have skillfully undercut it with your own weapon, chaos and disorder. And the ultimate result is that afterwards she realized exactly what kind of revenge it was for her inadequate reaction in the coffee shop. It would have been quite ironic if, amidst all the boxes you had placed, you accidentally tripped over one and jokingly blamed her for it, suggesting that she should be thankful you didn't get hurt, potentially leading to a lawsuit. You made the right decision to respond to her ridiculous behavior in the coffee shop, and in the end she deservedly got that taste of her own medicine. The next story is Strata complaints turn into thousands of dollars owned by the complainant. Strata is like a homeowners association for those who don't know. This all happened 2 years ago. I live in a 4th floor condo, maybe about 100 units in the building. I'm on the 3rd floor. For nearly 2 years I listened to the neighbor upstairs right above me renovate their unit, starting right at the crack of dawn till the last minute that Strata allowed construction to be done. Only on Sundays did I get some peace and quiet. Not only this, they had very heavy feet and stay up all night. I would see them in the elevator sometimes. The husband was one of those people with little man syndrome. I'm talking 5 foot tall and was not much liked in the building. I questioned the construction, in a polite and humble way, as I plan to do some renos very soon too. He told me to F off and mind my own business. Recently I had been getting many Strata fines for various reasons. Not knowing where they came from, I asked around. A friend of mine was on Strata, and advised it was probably with most certainty my upstairs neighbor, as they seem to be the only ones who ever submit any type of claims, violations, or anything against neighbors. Cost me over $500 before I plotted my revenge. I recently had my flooring redone in my place with new hardwood. Before getting this done, I contacted Strata, and they advised that 70% of the floor must be covered by area rugs to prevent unwanted noise to the suite below. You must also advise Strata of any new flooring to make sure it's in compliance with sound deadening and whatnot for noise sake. This is where I plotted my revenge. Knowing how loud the upstairs neighbors were, I knew they didn't have any rugs on their flooring, maybe even the wrong underlayer flooring itself. So I made a complaint to Strata about the noise. This is where it gets good. 5 days later or so, I could hear my upstairs neighbor freaking out, screaming at the top of his lungs. I didn't know what was going on, so I went up the stairs and peeked my head into the hallway. 2 members of Strata were there talking to him. This went on for a good 10 minutes, then quieted down. Over the next week, I could hear construction again. After talking to their neighbor, my friend, turns out all the work they did in the unit was not approved by Strata. But most important, the flooring was not up to code or spec with what Strata deemed fit for the building. No underlay and very thin flooring was used. They had to rip out all of their flooring because of this, costing them thousands of dollars to remove and reinstall everything up to Strata code. If you want to live by the Strata code, you must abide by the Strata code. I've not received one complaint since this happened. I would say that you've been very patient with the noise and inconvenience of your upstairs neighbor, who was doing renovations and also forgot to sleep at night. I understand that this was quite a challenge. If I were you, I would not have been able to stand it. Reporting the noise in relation to the uncomfortable neighbors mentioned above looks like a good move. You noticed that their floors were not up to standard, and this led them to having to remove and reinstall everything in accordance with the requirements of the Homeowners Association, spending thousands of dollars. As a response to their complaining about you, it was a very creative and funny way to show them that everyone has to live by the rules, including them. You've won this battle with the rules of the Homeowners Association, and now you can enjoy the peace and quiet in your home. I'm happy for you. The third story is Sociopathic Roommate Meet Your Biggest Misidentification of a Victim. Way back in college, I had a friend out in Colorado whose roommate was moving out, and who needed to rent the other room out for the summer. I wanted to get out of state for the summer, so went. Called ahead to a chain restaurant I'd worked at before in my own state. Got a job from the recommendation from my previous manager. Made sure my car was in good shape and took out an $800 loan for emergency cash just in case. About $1,600 nowadays. Drove out there to discover that my friend, now called AH, was leaving for a 2-week vacation the next day, and I'd be alone in the apartment with his current roommate, a guy I barely knew. I figured it was a combination of him knowing the roomie was trustworthy and just forgetting to mention it because he was busy planning the vacation, taking finals, etc. The roomie and I were fine together. Really nice guy, really sweet fiance. We had no problems at all, but I went to pay my share of the rent for the month. Roomie had paid his quarter, I was paying my half, and AH hadn't paid his section before leaving and was behind from the previous month. There was a really good shot we'd be evicted before he got back to it. Once again, I figured that since he'd left the day after his last class finished, it was just an oversight. I hadn't been warned by the roomie that this was not accidental, but as soon as he found out, he let me know that this was normal for AH, and I'd never get the money back. Well, I had car problems. Nothing terrible, but it ate up the remainder of the emergency cash between repair and towing. I picked up a second job and was working something like 70 hours a week, with 5 hours off each night and a couple each afternoon. I was trying very hard to pay bills now that my safety cushion was gone. AH came back to no job, as he'd not bothered to tell them he was going to be gone for 2 weeks, instead of starting immediately and he got replaced. He contacted another person we were both friends with, and she moved out there with us. That helped, but for several weeks I was exhausted. Those 2 hours each afternoon, AH would play his euphonium in the hallway outside our bedrooms. Weeks go on. I'm exhausted, he's spending money right and left. Took his boyfriend to Denver for the opening of Independence Day and stayed overnight in a nice hotel. Dropped a load of money at Renfest, went to Estes Park, you name it, and hasn't repaid a cent of the $400+. He's also borrowed $500 from another mutual friend that I knew couldn't afford it. I saw the check out on the cabinet and sucked money from the newest roomie. She's decided AH could do no wrong and I was ridiculous, so I just let her learn the hard way. Last day I'm there, I haven't talked to either of them for a few weeks. Not hard when I'm almost never home except to sleep. They don't know which day I'm leaving. Sold all the little things I'd bought for the room. Inflatable mattress, cheap thrift store table and lamp, fan, etc. To a coworker, packed up and was ready to go early the next morning with the last of my rent and bills to pay. Wait, all those bills are in his name. We have no written contract either. They're due the first of the month, which is tomorrow. I took the amount I owed in bills, subtracted what he owed me, and left him $486 in a note that now he owes people who can collect. I'm the only person who ever got their money back from him. I don't know how he came up with the equivalent of 1,000 or more current dollars in 24 hours, but I bet it was interesting. Wish I'd been there to see his face when he found that little pile of cash instead of a big check or wad of money. It seems that AH was a real master of manipulation and debt. He threw you off balance, made you work even harder, and tried to take your money. That's why I think he deserves this punishment. Leaving him $486 in a note was a real masterpiece. He could have already had the money in his hand, but you took away his convenient payment method and left him with a sweaty brow and only $486. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.